this after I was, wow. That's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
Diana is?
Uh-huh.
He was at the Makey
Yeah.
workshop last year.
Yeah. I was talking to him yesterday. All right.
Welcome to the Westport Library. Today's program will begin momentarily. Supported by Verso Studios, created locally and shared with the world.
Good morning and welcome back to the second workshop in the series of Microbit Makery. I'm Margaret Pastel, Youth Service Librarian here, working with Diana Granata, also in the Children's Department, and of course, Josh Burker, our presenter. I would like to take this moment once again to thank the Roz and Bud Siegel Foundation for their great support of this program that makes all this happen. And without further ado, here's Josh.
All right, good morning, everyone. It's awesome to see everyone again. If we could get the screen up here, we'll talk about where we're going and what we've done. There we go. Awesome. Okay, so yesterday, I was thinking on the drive in, we talked about Microbit, and I let slip that the Microbit was powering my teleporter, and nobody except one adult in the room like flinched at all. So it came up in my Facebook memories this morning. So how timely is that, right? So here's a Microbit in a teleporter, powering it. And what I'm using is this little hat, I think they call it. It then gives me access to all the pins on the Microbit without me needing to try and touch a wire to a tiny thing. And then from there, I can go off into a breadboard or connect it to a motor. So this little breadboard here, this is actually a kind of a secondary hat that powers a little motor here. This is called an H-bridge, and you can buy these, but I found some computer science professor's plans in a Google Doc on the internet. He's like, here's how you can build one really easily. So the Microbit then powers this little motor, which makes the arrow, which indicates on the map where you intend to teleport to. All right, so Microbit at work. Awesome, so we had a great time yesterday, I think. I thought the pacing was well, nobody ended up in tears, and we got through all the material, and had quite a bit of fun in my estimation. So we're gonna continue to do the same and look at some Microbit version 2 specific hardware parts of the Microbit. That'll get you ready for tomorrow, where you can explore more resources here on the Microbit page, or we can use Google to help you program your own project or multiple projects of your own. So just two things I want to point out before we get going this morning, and that is, as I said yesterday, we did projects that first came out for the Microbit 1. And I said I could look at Microbits and quickly tell you, is this a 1 or a 2? So let me just hip you to that as well, in case you end up, in a library or a makerspace or a classroom in the fall where they have Microbits, and you're like, dude, I know how to do this, I'm gonna do it. But you aren't sure, is this a 1 or a 2? So the first clue I gave you is you can turn it over, and on the back, right side, it tells you what version it is. But an even faster way to figure it out is you look at the bottom of the Microbit, at the pins, and the Microbit 2, there's little dimples, kind of to help the alligator clip as Jaden used an alligator clip yesterday and I used an alligator clip, help the alligator clip stay in place and not wiggle off that pin. The version 2 has those dimples. The version 1 is just flat across the bottom. Okay, so quick and easy way to tell. The second thing that I want to point out to all of you, if you aren't here on the Microbit page, go ahead and get to the Microbit page, just the landing page here. And across the top, here's the projects we worked on yesterday, okay? We finished with MicroChat and then Love Meter, Dice, Smiley Buttons, Name Tag, and then you see over here, eventually it runs out of space. So I just want to point out to you that here next to My Projects, there's this View All link. If you click that, that's like everything you'll have worked on. Okay, so eventually you won't see all your projects listed there. They're still there, saved in your browser, but you might not see them. I guess the third thing that I'll mention, and then we'll get started, is you've been downloading these like directly to the Microbit, right? So tomorrow when we go away, if you're using like a library computer, you may want to bring in like a USB drive from home, like one of these little guys, you know, to plug in. And then you can, instead of downloading it, you know, to your paired Microbit, you can download it. And on these Windows library laptops, it'll download to the downloads folder, and you can drag the hex file to the USB drive to save it and take it home with you, because then you can drag and drop that file back into Make code and continue working on your code. All right? Awesome. So, as I said, today we get to explore the hardware that's version 2 specific. So this code wouldn't run on a 1, but we all have 2, so that's great. So if you scroll down a little bit from where we were yesterday, it says tutorials for the new Microbit version 2. And we're gonna start with pet hamster. Now, I'm gonna show you that I'm 50 years old, but back in the 1990s, a whole like different, you know, century ago here, there was a popular little toy called a Tamagotchi. He knows, all right? This little virtual digital pet that you had to pay attention to, right? And you had to feed it, and if you neglected it, it would get sick, right? So this is a Microbit version of the Tamagotchi, a little virtual hamster that we're gonna program here. So we'll do the blocks tutorial here, and we can skip this little thing because I'll explain it to you. So they've named this hamster Cyrus, and he's very sleepy. In fact, he's almost always sleeping, they tell us. So from this basic category here, yesterday it was all that LED grid, the 5x5, 25 LED matrix. But there's also this block we didn't get yesterday called show icon. And we're gonna snap that into the on start here. And then if you click on the heart here, there's all these different icons, and you can actually scroll down and there's even more. But the one that we're looking for, evidently, is this sleep one. And as you see, if you hover over it, it'll tell you asleep, okay? This one is surprised, angry, okay? So we want it to come in when you start up the Microbit, is this hamster is a sleepy little hamster. Okay. And again, if you aren't sure, remember, sometimes the syntax on these directions is a little wonky. So if you aren't sure, is that the sleepy face they mean? This little help icon, it'll show you what they're meaning. Okay, so if you aren't certain, you can always click the light bulb, or, you know, yell my name and I'll do my best. Okay, on the next one, there's an input that doesn't exist on version 1, and that's this on logo press. So if you look at your Microbit here, there's the Microbit logo above the LED matrix, okay? So there's a way that we can press this, as it were, and it should detect it. We're gonna go back to the basic palette and grab another show icon and snap it into the on logo pressed. And we're gonna make Cyrus happy when we press the logo. If we press next, we get introduced to a whole new palette, which is music. So you used to have to buy like a hat, like the one in my teleporter, to get a speaker. Or you could cobble together a speaker and clip it onto the pin and tell it to output through a pin. But that's a little less plug and play. So now we have this play sound giggle until done, and they want us to snap that maybe right below the voice. And if you click on giggle here, it'll, let me turn my volume up here. It'll play, I can hear somebody's giggling out there. So it'll play you the sample of what the, particular sound is. All right. Now we're gonna go to input and notice that there's a on shake. So we were using that yesterday with the dice that we programmed. So on shake, they want it so that it makes Cyrus unhappy to be shaken. Makes him sad, in fact. So again, if you aren't sure which of the icons is sad, hover over it. This one is confused, but the one next to it is sad. Okay, so if you hover over those icons, it'll tell you what that is. Okay, so don't shake your baby. That's like the lesson 1 out of the hospital. They don't let you leave the hospital until you know not to shake your baby. Well, you can't shake Cyrus either. So we're gonna put below the sad face a giggle again, but it isn't a laughing matter. This time it makes Cyrus sad. So you can select sad from the list there. Okay, so it'll play that whole sound. All right, and then we're gonna right click, and if you're on a Mac, that means hold down the control key, or if you're on a PC or on the Chromebook, you ought to be able to just right click on this sleeping icon. And just like in Scratch, you can then duplicate, okay? If that's too awkward, just go back to basic and grab the show icon here. But the reason why we're duplicating it is we want to add this below. So I'm going to duplicate it twice. So what's going to happen is after you've finished shaking Cyrus and making him sad, he'll play the sound, and then he'll go back to looking like he's asleep. Okay? You could also do something like, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll give Cyrus a little more personality. Okay, good. And again, if you aren't sure, that help button will give you like, okay, play sad, yep, okay. Oh, Josh like jumped ahead, like you don't go back to asleep after smile. They just want it like, go back to sleep after you've been shaken. Okay. Oh, nope, I was right. You're gonna duplicate that one, and after you make him giggle, he will also go back to sleep. He is indeed a very sleepy hamster. Gotta look into a cup of coffee for Cyrus. Okay, so without even downloading it, you can test it, of course. If I tap the icon there, or you do it on your simulator, you can do that. Otherwise, of course, you can, let's see if like, I've unplugged mine obviously and put my computer away, but let's see if I download it, does it, remember, are you still paired? It's still paired, nice. So, oh, I just shook the physical microbit and it made Cyrus very sad. And then he went back to sleep. And then if I touch the microbit icon on the microbit itself, oh, that makes him happy, nice, okay. Cool, and again, you can debug it up here. So I can press the shake, that makes him sad, or I can press the microbit, and that makes him happy. All right, so we've explored in this one 2 different inputs to the microbit. The capacitive touch, and then the shake. So Michael, right? He was one of the people, and I think there's a few other, Keegan was there too, the Makey workshop last summer, right? The whole deal with that one is you have to complete the circuit, right? So your one hand needs to be on ground, and then you touch the key that you've hooked the other end up. So this is capacitive touch, so you don't need to touch a ground at all. As long as there's enough moisture in your skin, you can close that circuit just with a bare finger on the microbit face itself. So you could, well, anyone have any ideas about like beyond like touching it and making it happy and shaking it and making it sad? Anyone have any ideas about adding some hamster functionality to make this closer to, an actual Tamagotchi pet? Do you have any ideas? Because you shook your head, you know what a Tamagotchi is, right? What's one thing you definitely have to do to keep a Tamagotchi alive? Food and water, good. You got to give it food and water, right? So what if you programmed press A to feed it, right? So if we say here, done, we'll get the whole palette back, right? Okay, I'm gonna zoom my blocks out because I need a little more. So let's do that. Let's take a little Josh detour here, which sometimes goes sideways, but we'll try and keep it on the tracks, okay? So here under input, we have on button A pressed. So let's take that out, okay? Bring that out under the programming area. And then we need to go to this variables palette. And we're gonna make a variable called food. And click OK. Okay, so we're gonna grab this set food to 0 block, and let's snap that right below the asleep icon on start. So he starts with an empty belly. I'm assuming Cyrus is a he. It starts with an empty belly. Okay? And then we're gonna say, when A is pressed, change food by 1. Okay? And then over here in logic, we're gonna grab this if block. And we're gonna say, also under logic, we need one of these equals, 0 equals 0, kind of diamond block. Snap that in where it says true. So I have this, if 0 equals 0, then. Okay? But instead of 0 equals 0, we're gonna go back to the variables palette, and we're gonna grab this food, and we're gonna say if food equals 0, then under basic, we're gonna show the icon sad. And we'll, under music, I got to scroll down here, play giggle until done. Well, it certainly isn't going to make him giggly, but it's going to make him yawn. Okay? Now, one kind of debugging issue here, and that is when we start, his tummy is empty, so it's immediately going to be like, woo, woo, right? So here on start, why don't you go ahead, and he's had breakfast, so let's set it to 3. Okay? And then the other thing is, like, we gotta subtract food out of the belly, right? We gotta burn off some food. So we have this forever loop happening where it's checking, hey, is the tummy empty, right? Have we reached 0? Underneath where it says if, click this plus and you get an else. So we're gonna tell it to, under loops, not loops, under, I'm sorry, basic, pause for 5 seconds. And then under variables, change food by -1. Okay, so it starts with a good healthy breakfast, and it doesn't immediately chime at us, I'm hungry, right? Like it's ready to play a bit. But after 15 seconds, it's gonna say, I'm hungry here, like I need a snack. And you'll be able to press A to increase it. Now, we won't like continue belaboring this exercise because we want to get to the others, but we've built off of like their tutorial here. So you can see like this is all kind of expandable in a fun way. And then maybe where you take this next is it's possible to overfeed a hamster, right? So if you're one of those people who likes to hammer on a button and figure out how many times you can push the A button and put kibble in your hamster's dish, well, maybe that makes the hamster very sick after a while because Cyrus does not know to stop, right? Okay, so awesome. We've built the beginning of a good Tamagotchi, right? We also know that we need some water, so that could be B, you know? You know, maybe if it reaches 0 for too long, like you lose your hamster, you know? Maybe there's consequences, so. Awesome. Let's go ahead and click on the microbit up here. And we're gonna move to countdown, okay? And countdown again, like we're gonna get to make some noise, which is awfully fun. But where this is kind of interesting is, and I'm just gonna tell you like straight away before we even get into it, this may be a different way of repeating a task than you're used to programming. Okay? It certainly was different from how I was used to programming. But it works, and they want us to do it this way, and it's cool to learn a new way to do it. Okay? So we'll start this tutorial here. Again, this is one that would only work on the version 2 because we're gonna play some tones. All right? So we're gonna use this for loop to recreate the same sound 3 times. Now, why we don't do this with a repeat 3, I'm not sure. Perhaps this is kind of closer in the syntax that I've seen as a complete novice to like how you do it in JavaScript, okay? So they kind of want to begin to introduce us in the block side of things to like, here's how the syntax would look and JavaScript. And that actually, I mentioned this yesterday and I forgot to take this off ramp, but let's actually, after we program this set of blocks, let me show you something. Actually, I'll have to show you at the end, okay? Doesn't let you do it in the tutorial here. Okay, so under loops, we have this for index, and we're gonna snap that into the on start. And then we're gonna change the for down to a 2. So that's another thing to note, is it doesn't start on 1, it starts on 0, right? So 0 is a number here that we use. So 0, 1, 2, that'll repeat 3 times. All right. And then under music, instead of like having it giggle at us, they also have this play tone. And we're gonna snap that right into the empty, snap it into your empty for loop right here. Okay. And then it plays that C for us on the simulator here. When I was at home doing all of these before, like last week when I was doing them to make sure I knew what I was talking about in front of all of you, and my screen wasn't hooked to this HDMI, so the resolution was smaller, I couldn't see these buttons here on my simulator because they have like a fake speaker hooked up. They're showing you how you could hook up a speaker to a Microbit without a hat. I had to scroll down here. So over on the left side of the window, I had to scroll to see those controls. Okay, so if you're missing those controls, you can scroll on this side, it turns out. Okay, so 1 beat's a little long, they say. That's like a whole note. So we're gonna change that to a quarter note from this drop-down menu. Okay, and then you'll hear it, you just heard it. It was like boop. Okay, short one instead of boop, long one. Wow, I'm totally out of tune there too. Okay, the next thing it is, they want us to kind of show us the countdown, okay? So under basic, we have this show number. We had the show string yesterday where we told it to show our name, but today we're gonna do a show number and we're gonna snap it below the 4. We can, from this 4 index from 0 to 2, without even going back to the variables palette, I can drag that index and tell it to show the number index. So back when I started teaching people to program turtle art, that move there, like referencing, like, you know, show the number index, show the number of this, that's this variable that we've created. That kind of like put a huge light bulb on over my head, like, oh wow, you can like reference stuff within the procedure that you've already started off, you know? So we're referencing that variable. All right, and the next thing we need to do is we're going to go to this math and grab the minus, the 0 minus 0. Yeah. They should have forever if they did the tutorial. No? No? And it didn't pop in.
Some do, and frankly, on my computer, I don't either.
Let me come take a look. I saw Jade shake her head. What I'm wondering is, it's not hidden underneath that.
Even if I click basic, it doesn't work.
No, because they've taken out all the kind of extra blocks. So let's go back in, and we only have on start. So I'm wondering here, like, let's see, for index. I'm wondering if it pops in, and it forgot to pop in here, 0 to 2. And then next, and then music, play tone, middle C for a quarter beat. And then next, basic show number. Index. And then that's where we are right now. And then 3. I think it's going to pop into place. Like, I don't know why we're seeing it on mine.
Go ahead and check. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It leaves the tutorial without forever coming in.
Then we may not need the forever, but let's march on here real quick. And okay, so sorry about that. So okay, now we're going to do the math that makes the index decrease in number. Okay, so they want us from the math category here. Grab the 0 minus 0 block, and we're going to replace. And here's exactly when the help comes in handy, because they're like, from the math category, snap 0 minus 0 in to replace index in your show number index block. What? So this is a good point to grab the help. And we can see, oh, okay, so Jade, I built yours wrong, actually. Look, they want us to put that here, down here. Okay. And then we're going to put this index here and change this 0 to a 3. And then up on the simulator, you can see, okay, it threw the 3 up there to start with. Okay. So let's make sure it looks like they want it to look. So on start, let me move this block over. On start, from index 0 to 2, play tone, middle C for a quarter beat. This I didn't put inside, because you'll notice, sorry, mine's only doing 3, right? This needs to be tucked inside that loop, so it counts down. All right. So everyone have that assembled? So again, that was like the perfect opportunity to use the help, because the English wasn't making any sense to me, like how they were describing that countdown. Okay. So if we hit next here, the next thing we're going to do is here under the show string, where we can print words, we're going to put it at the very bottom of the on start, and we're going to tell it go. So after it counts down, 3, 2, 1, it'll print go. Okay? And then the last thing is we're going to play right above go a middle C for 1 beat. But instead of middle C, they want us to do a middle G. So if you hover over the piano, if I click on middle C, they give me a piano keyboard. I don't play the piano, unfortunately. Really wish I did. But if I hover over the keys here, it'll tell me, oh, there's the middle G. And I can click that, and it's 392. Okay, so to distinguish when it's time to go, we change that tone to a higher note. Okay, nice. And then they say, well, you can check it out on your simulator, or we can download it to the Microbit. And it runs it on the Microbit. Now, it only is gonna run it once on the Microbit. And then you have to throw the Microbit away and buy a new one. No, because this is set up as on start, right? So Jade, the reason why we didn't have forever, and Margaret, the reason why we didn't have forever is it didn't use forever in the tutorial. So if we hit done here, you may wanna change this from on start to on button A pressed, or on button A plus B pressed. Just move all this code into there. And then you can use it more than once without having to like completely restart your Microbit, you know, pull the power to it, plug the power back in. So now that I have that, if I press A and B on the simulator, it runs it. Okay, Uma and Michael run around the library in their foot race, right? Keegan and James run around the library in their foot race. So I can use it over and over without needing to pull the power to the Microbit. Okay. So I guess the reason why they have us do this instead of repeat 3 times is, again, as far as I can surmise, the syntax is a little closer to what you'd see in JavaScript. So up here at the very top, you'll notice we're in blocks, but if I click JavaScript, it actually translates the whole thing into JavaScript for me. And that is how you write a loop, a repeating loop in JavaScript, is you create an index and tell it how long the index is, right? And then it steps through the index that many times, right? So that's, in my mind, why they're telling us to do it that way, is, hey, let's start working towards scaffolding people into JavaScript. Cool. Any questions on that one? That one's just a nice kind of quick and simple one, right? You can have this Microbit, kind of like the dice that we programmed yesterday. Okay. You could have a traveling countdown Microbit. Okay, so Morse chat is our next one. And we're gonna pretend that we have a pig named Sky with whom we can communicate in Morse code. Okay, so when we start the tutorial on this one, it can only communicate using Morse code. They say that they say that like it's a small thing. Like you teach a pig to communicate with Morse code and you're gonna be famous, right? So we're gonna use the Microbit as a translator for our friend Sky the pig. This is going to use the radio and different capacitive touches. So again, we're going to have to modify this at the end so that everyone isn't receiving messages. We're going to modify it by breaking into different radio groups like we did yesterday. And that way it's not just total radio chaos and you aren't sure if it's actually working, okay? And or run it in the simulator. So under input here, we're going to grab this on logo pressed. And in the radio palette, there's this radio send number. And we're going to snap that in. So does everyone know what Morse code is, by the way, before we get started? I see one head shaking. 2, 3, 4. Okay, good. Okay, most all of us know. If you don't know what it is it's before we had I think it's even before telephones, right? Yeah, they had little handsets that you could tap out a message, and through short little taps or longer taps, you could form from a commonly accepted alphabet letters, and from that you could use letters to make words and send these over long distances, right? And so you'd have somebody at the other end writing down the dashes and dots, and at the end they'd translate that into English for you or whatever language you were using to send these messages and give you the message typed out for you, okay? We're gonna say when you press that logo, like we did with Cyrus the hamster, send a 0. Then we're gonna grab another input on logo press, and you're gonna notice it's grayed out when we drop it into the programming area. It's because we already have one, and they don't want you to create code that's gonna not work, all right? Because there's nothing more sad than programming it and then it doesn't work. So they're gonna basically indicate you need to do something different here. So we're gonna change it from pressed to long pressed. And it becomes not gray. Okay, so that's cool, right? That capacitive touch has 2 different modes. It has a touch and it has a long touch. And then it also has, is it pressed? I wonder what the difference is there. Or released. So it can look like, are you holding this down constantly? Because if you aren't, I'm gonna go off, all right? But we want long pressed here. Okay, so if it is long pressed, it's gonna radio send number, but not a 0, it's going to send a 1. So now we have a dash. So we have 0, Gesundheit. We have 0s for a dot, and we have 1s for a dash. Now, just like yesterday, we've programmed the send. Now we need to program a receive. What happens when these messages come out of the ether? What happens? So under radio, there is a on radio received. And we're gonna use a logic if else block here. So this if else block. And then also from logic, we're gonna grab that 0 equals 0 diamond block and put it where true is. So if 0 equals 0, then if 0 equals 0, then do this, else do that. Okay? All right. So under the radio received number, we're gonna put that over here. We're gonna just grab receive number and drop it in the left side of that 0 diamond block. So if received number equals 0, then and then we're gonna do a dash if the logo's long pressed. So here's our show LEDs. And we're gonna put that in this else area. And we'll turn on 3 of these in a row like that. That'll be our dash. So that's in the else container. And we can get help to make sure, yep, we're on the right path. Okay, from music, because I know how much you guys like making noise, we're gonna grab this play middle C, and we're gonna put it at the very bottom, after the else here. At the bottom container, sorry, it's gonna go here. right below that LED dash. Okay, and then we need a dot, obviously. So the dot is going to go in the top under the if, and it's just going to be a single dot in the middle. So if I receive 0, then show me a dot. Otherwise, show me a dash. So that's working smarter, not harder, right? All they're looking for is, am I getting a dot? Am I getting a 0? Show me a dot. Otherwise, anything else I receive, just a dash. They aren't even checking. Is it a 1? They don't care, right? All they care about is it a 0? If it's a 0, show me a dot. Otherwise, anything else, just a dash. And there's only one other thing it could be sending, right? But it's just kind of some smart programming. You don't have to do 2 if statements, just an if else. All right, so then we're gonna put music underneath that if statement here. And it's, of course, like it's shorter, right? A dot shorter than a dash. So let's change that 1 beat to a quarter beat. Cool. Okay. Under basic, we're going to want to clear the screen. At the very bottom, it says on your on radio received. So this clear screen is going to snap in below that if else. So, you know, if you get a dot, play a beep, a real short beep, and give me a dot, and then clear the screen so you're ready for the next message to come in. Otherwise, whatever else you get, it's meh, and then clear the screen. Okay, it's a longer dash. Okay, so if I touch the microbit, it's got to like, oh, figure out, oh, you're sending somewhere. There's the dot, all right? And then it's, of course, impossible to do. There we go. Okay, now I can see both microbits here. So dot, you'll see come in on the bottom one. Long dot by pressing. Okay, cool. Now, in order for this to work like with a big group, like we have here, if, you know, tomorrow, if you're like, oh, I want to like really ramp up this Morse code thing, and like I'm going to Google a Morse code alphabet, for example, Morse code alphabet. All right, and get this information, all right? So if I wanted to really ramp that up, what I could do is I would probably want to add an on start radio send number to 23, because it's 2023, or some other number that you and your friends select, right? So you're not on the default radio, and it's a smaller subset of you being able to communicate. So it's a fun idea. Like, this would be pretty funny to bring to school in the fall and have a way of sending messages to your friends in Morse code. You know, when you have to turn in your mobile phones at the beginning of the day, you'd still have a way to send your memes, but it would be like it's 1842 in the house, you know. Awesome. So, you know, it didn't take much to Google Morse code alphabet and have the whole alphabet at your disposal. Or, you know, as many of you are, you're like creating some sick beats with the Morse code there. Okay, cool. We're doing pretty good on time here. The next one is gonna be clap lights. So there's actually a microphone built into version 2. If you turn yours over on the back, because this is an educational project, they want you to kind of be aware of, like, it's not entirely a black box, right? Like, in many ways it is a black box, but they've at least helpfully labeled it. So if we look on the back, that big bump right in the middle of the board, that's your speaker. And then to the left of that, the square, that's the processor, that's the brains. And then there's an accelerometer that's a little black box right here where my pointer finger ends, okay? On yours, it's above the pins there, and then of course the pins. There's the Bluetooth antenna is labeled. That's this little zigzag, kind of like they put in the simulator. That little zigzag in the top left corner, that's an antenna. And then there's a reset button. So for example, on that countdown, I said you had to pull the power. I was wrong. You wouldn't necessarily have to pull the power. Just hit the reset button on the back of the Microbit, and that would tell it on start again. Okay, so where's the microphone on this? Microphone, yes. They are below the Bluetooth antenna label, microphone. So I'm imagining right here on the front of the Microbit, if you look at the logo that we've been touching, look to the right. There's a tiny gold circle. That's your microphone. Okay, tiny little microphone. So we're going to use that microphone in this project. You're all too young, but when I was your age, we all laughed at the clapper, which you could plug into your lamp and from the comfort of your bed, clap and it would turn on the lamp. So same idea here. We're going to be able to make a noise and it'll turn on the LEDs. Okay? So from input, here's a block we haven't seen before on loud sound. We'll drag that out into our workspace. And again, just like with food for Cyrus and that little detour that I took us on, we're going to create a variable. So under the variables palette, you'll make a variable, and let's name it lights on. Now, you're going to notice here that they've had us capitalize the O. This is called camel case. Okay, in programming, they call this camel case. It just makes it easier for people to read when you're cramming your words together. If I did it all lowercase, lights on, it's hard to read, but if I capitalize, you know, from the second word on each of the first letters, lights on at the library, see, you can read it, right? So that's what that is. Lights on. So we'll have a variable called lights on. And from the logic, here's our friend if then again, if else rather. We're going to put that on loud. Okay? And instead of if true, from the variables palette, we're going to snap if lights on. Now, this may not logically to you, as it did not logically to me, make sense as a programmer coming out of Scratch, okay, is kind of where I got my blocks programming chops. In Scratch, you can't do this. The shapes aren't the same, right? In MakeCode, because Microsoft does things weird like this, you can snap this rounded thing into a diamond. So if lights on, then. Okay? So again, for me, that was a stumbling block. I'm like, what? You can't put a circle, you know, an oval into a diamond? That doesn't make sense. Well, in MakeCode, you can. Okay? So we're going to say if lights on, then. And then from the show LEDs, we're going to snap that in here. Okay? And they want us to just do like a pattern that you like. They suggest just the outside lights is like a good indicator that the lights are on, like that. But they say make your own design, you know. You could just as easily do something like that. Okay, so the lights are on. And then, otherwise, if the lights aren't on, and the else, we're gonna clear the screen. So if lights on isn't true, turn the lights off. Otherwise, show this pattern that you've built. All right? Okay, so from variables, we need to put it at the very top here, set lights on to 0. And then in logic, we're gonna find this not diamond. And again, this doesn't graphically, user interface wise doesn't make sense, but I can snap this diamond into this oval here. So set lights on to not diamond. And then they want me again, not logically, to snap this circle into the not. So set lights on to not lights on. All right, is that really what they want me to do? Yep. Okay. Okay, so now in the simulator here, the simulator is set to 128. And they say that right now your microbit thinks that anything above 128 is loud. So anytime the sound goes above 128, your lights should switch on and off. So if I grab this slider in the simulator and move it up, there's 187 and it's on, right? If I move it down here and I'm really quiet, right? I gotta reset it and move it down here. It doesn't show me anything, but if I move it up here, right? Okay, it's working. Okay, so then the next thing they tell us though is under the input category, a new category should show up beneath it called more, right here. So under more, so input more, set loud sound threshold. And we're gonna snap that into our on start. And this is where you tune it for the room, okay? So some rooms are gonna be pretty loud. So 128, it's like always gonna be on. So you'd wanna change this up. You know, the very top number is 255. So maybe your room's loud enough that you need like 200, you know, is your start kind of dull roar in the room. And if it gets above 200, then it goes on, right? But they've probably chosen 128 for a reason. You know, 128's probably like, yeah, there's some conversation happening, but like, you know, you can pick up on it. Yeah. Well, this isn't gonna make any noise. It's waiting for you to make a noise, yeah, near the microbit to see, hey, is this loud enough? You know, so if I download mine here, I'm gonna set this back to 128, which is the original threshold, download it to my microbit. Okay, and then I'm gonna hit the reset button because it's doing something weird here. So 128 might be too loud for the room, right? At least it seems to think it is in my case. Okay, it's cleared itself. Talking, yeah. So my talking voice is setting it off, right? And I can hear people clapping and it's going off. Awesome, okay? Nice. Okay, cool. All right, we have half an hour left, so we're in super good shape here. You guys should try and clap like in sync. Slow clap me. Okay, cool. So the next one is also going to make use of the microphone, I believe, but this is going to make use of the LED matrix. And James, this is the one I was talking about yesterday, like being able to specifically address, like, and you could use a variable to start marching through the LED matrix, for example. So this one, I guess, of all the tutorials, when I did them all ahead of class, because I got to do my homework, this is the one that kind of seemed to me closest to magic. So I really like this one. Like, of course it isn't magic, but like the science fiction writer Asimov said that really good technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I think this hits that point here. So there's a ghost that lives in our microbit, and we can use our breath to scare this ghost, whose name is Haven, away off of our microbit. Okay, so under basic here, we're gonna find the show icon, and we're gonna add it to the on start. And they've already drawn a ghost for us. It's the classic Pac-Man ghost here. So on start, it's gonna draw a ghost on that. Ooh. Okay. All right, so, yeah, because here, look, on this one, they aren't doing that index. So in my mind, again, the reason why they did that repeat, the index, is to begin to get your head into the JavaScript language. But this time, we're gonna just go to the loops and grab a repeat 4 times and snap it into the forever container. Okay? And they ask, hey, well, why do you need a repeat loop when we already have a forever container? And it says, because forever has an embedded delay that we want to avoid, right? So if you're telling the microbit to do something forever, it's not like, right? It's more like, right? So this time they want it to be like, right? So they've thrown that repeat in. Okay, again, we're gonna use a logic loop and grab an if true then and snap it into the repeat. We're gonna replace the true from in that logic, the if statement, with another if 0 equals 0 comparison. So if 0 equals 0, then do this. But of course, we aren't going to keep it that way. We'll go to input, and there's a block that'll read the sound level that the microbit's detecting. So we're going to put if sound level equals 0. We're going to change the equals to greater than. Okay, so alligator biting the sound level. And obviously not 0, but 128. So if the sound level gets greater than that 128, that the microbit team seems to think that's a reasonable sound level, as I'm sitting here talking, I'm not screaming at it like I was talking and it was lighting up, and it's continuing to light up. So this means that Haven the ghost is going to hear any sound over 128. Awesome. Okay, we got to make a variable. So we're going to go here to variables, and we're going to make a variable, and they want us to just name it COL for column. Okay, so another programmer technique, don't write the whole word out. Okay, so COL for column. So that's going to be the horizontal. Okay. And then let's make a second variable, name it row. That one's short enough, ROW, that we can just type the whole word. So now we have two variables, column for the horizontal, and column for the vertical, and row for the horizontal. Okay, cool. Now, under variables, we're going to have a block that's set row to 0. We're going to put that in the empty here, in the empty if statement. And instead of setting the row to 0, we'll go to math and pick a random number and snap it where that 0 is. So instead of being a maximum of 10, it's going to be a maximum of 4. And that's because the lights on the microbit are labeled 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the columns and the rows. Okay, again, just like with the index, it starts at 0. It doesn't start at 1, it starts at 0. So the first column and row is 0, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, but we have 5, right? Because 0 is also a number there. Okay, we're gonna go back here to the variables, and we're gonna put the set row at the end of our if statement. Here, I believe. Let's just check. Nope. Inside the if. Okay, but we've already done something with set row. So let's click that drop down and set column, set COL. And then just like we did for row, we'll go to math and grab the pick random, and it will also be from 0 to 4. Okay, so we're setting it up to do something with the LEDs here if the sound gets loud. We don't know yet what, but we're saying, hey, do something here. Okay, pick a random number somewhere in this matrix, all right? Left, up, down, left, right, up, down. Okay, time to move some lights around, they say. So we're gonna grab another if statement under logic, and we're gonna put it inside, but below the repeat 4 times. Inside and at the bottom of yours. So right here. And from the LED category, we're going to find this point X0, Y0, and replace the true. So if point X0, Y0, then, okay? So what this is going to do is it's going to test, is the light on at this specific X and Y spot that I've randomly chosen? Go to this random place on this matrix and tell me, is this light on? That's pretty cool. Okay? So if that light is on, then from the LED, we're going to unplot and snap it in the if. But we're also going to snap here under LED a plot right below it. Okay, we'll just double check that. Yep, So if point x0, y0, then unplot x0, y0, and then plot x0, y0. So it looks like that. Okay, so we now have 3 blocks from the LED category, and all 3 have x0 and y0 coordinates. And these 2 steps, we're gonna set it so that every x is followed by the column variable, and every y is followed by the row variable. Okay, so I can do it this way. If I go to variables, I'm gonna grab this column here, and I'm gonna snap it here. It's faster if I bring them out here, maybe. Here and here. Okay, so if point X, column, Y0. Unplot X, column, Y0. Plot X, column, Y0. Then, as you might be able to imagine, we also need to do that with row for the Y. So if on variables, I'm going to drag out a row and replace the Y. So it should look like that now. Okay, we're nearly there. So for math, there's this 0 plus 0. And they want us to replace the column in our plot X, column Y row right here. So they want us to plot 0 plus 0, Y row. And you may have to move this forever thing to expose this column that we've kind of lost. And we're gonna replace this first 0. So it now is plot X, column plus 0. But we'll change that 0 to a 1. Now, it says check out the simulator. So if I move this bar to show the volume and I move it above 128, the ghost blows away. So try downloading that to your Microbit. There's the ghost. And if I blow on it, eventually he goes away. So I think that's like a pretty close to magic, right? Once it goes away, you can press the reset on the back of your Microbit and then blow on it again. And it goes away. So that's pretty cool, right? Like it's clever. It's clever. Nice. So that got a little hairy there at the end, like all of the like replacement and everything. But did everyone get that? Got their code to look like the code in the help? So let's just talk without like over talking about what's happening real quick. Let me reset mine. So it's looking so the first thing it's doing is picking a random place, right? Picking a random place there. And then it's checking, hey, is this random column and row you've chosen, is it plotted? If it is, then unplot it, right? But then it's also immediately afterwards checking one to the right of it and saying, is it plotted? Right? That's that plot X column +1. So it's checking that one. Is that plotted? If it isn't, then turn it on. And that's how you get this. It's not just disappearing when you blow on the ghost. It's kind of disappearing, but also being pushed to the right if you look at it. So at the very end, there's a couple pixels left on the right side of the matrix that you have to kind of blow Haven off the matrix there. So very clever. Awesome. Okay, I think we're almost through the tutorials here. The last one. Okay, this is good. This is the last one, and it gives me plenty of time to talk it. Okay? Turns out that you can do data logging with the microbit too. So we can use the microbit and place it in an environment in which we live and collect some data that we can come back and look at later. So when we start the tutorial on this one, it explains that Lychee, the cat, loves the sun, and it wants to know if your home has a good sunbathing spot. Are we up for the challenge? Of course. Okay, so first we need to make sure we know that our microbit's gonna collect data. So we're gonna create a Boolean variable and use it to track when the microbit's logging data. So we're gonna start it out by saying you aren't logging data, right? When you start up microbit, you aren't logging. You gotta be told you're logging. So let's go to the variables palette and make a variable, which surprisingly we're gonna call logging. Also from the palette, we're gonna set logging to 0 and put that on the on start. So whenever it starts up or you hit the reset button, it's gonna turn the logging off. And then from the logic palette, grab this false diamond and snap it into the empty 2. So set logging to false. Instead of set logging to 0, we're gonna set it to false. Again, from a user interface perspective, it doesn't make sense that you're snapping diamonds into ovals, but Microsoft says it does, so here we are. Okay, now we're gonna make it so we can turn logging on, and we're gonna do that with the button. So under input, let's grab an on button A pressed. And from variables, we'll grab a set logging to 0 and snap that into A. Now, we haven't defined true yet, right? We've told it it knows about false, right? When you start it up, logging is set to false. But here, we're gonna set it under logic. We're gonna grab this not and put it in the 0 here. And then I'm gonna put a variable from variables logging here. So set logging to not logging, right? And then they say, take a moment to help Lychee answer the following question. What is happening every time she presses the A button? Well, let's just make sure we have that right. So if we press the A button, it should set it to not logging, right? Set logging to not logging. All right. Okay. So now we got to build in some more logic here. So we're going to grab an if-else statement from the logic palette, and it'll go below the set logging to not logging here. We'll replace true with logging. So if logging, then and then we need to display an image when it's logging. And we're gonna just use from basic the show icon and snap it into the if. And they want us to use the target to show that we're doing some logging, which they say is this one. So show us on the LEDs that you're logging. And then we're gonna give a little sound here. So they say from music, we wanna play that giggle sound. And so once you start logging, giggle a little bit. But instead of giggle, let's do hello. Okay? So if I press A, it plays that sound and it gives me that target. Okay, if it isn't logging, we're gonna snap into the else, that empty else, a clear screen. So when you start up, show me a target and do the hello, otherwise you gotta clear the screen. All right, so then finally, we gotta set the data logging, we gotta set it up for the cat. So in order to get the cat a good amount of data without running out of memory, because these things don't have, gigabytes of RAM, we're gonna only collect every minute. So under loops here, we're gonna grab an every 500 millisecond container, and we can change that to 1 minute. Okay, and it automatically changes it to 60,000 milliseconds. And then we're gonna snap another logic if statement into that loop. Replace true with logging from the variables palette. So if logging, then. Okay, and you can see where this might be going. Now we have this new palette, data logger. And we're gonna log data. So we'll snap that inside the if statement. And then you'll notice that after the word column, so we can type in this little spot, we're gonna just type TMP for temperature. Okay, and then we're going to go to input and snap temperature here into the value. So log data in a column. So they're gonna build a column that's named temp and then put the value that you see, temperature, into that column. Well, that's cool. Okay, you're gonna notice over here to the right of temperature, there's a plus. So if I click that plus, it gives us this. And I could type the word light here. Okay, so we're building out into our logging a second column called light, and instead of 0, we want the light level to be logged as well. So then, we did it. It says if you have a Microbit, we can download the code and try it. So I'll say okay here. And then what it's gonna say, and I'm gonna do this on mine real quick and show you so you don't have to dig through the file system and figure out where is this, right? So, but what it's saying is, and I'll show you this in a moment, is it's gonna actually save a file to your Microbit called My Data. And that, you can pull that file out, which I'll show you in a minute, and you could use that to help you determine, does your home have a good sunbathing spot for lychee? You can compare the light and temperature levels you record for different areas around your house. So the sunniest and warmest spots will likely be your favorite. So the intent is take that Microbit with the battery pack and move it into a sunny spot in the house, right? And then eventually the sun moves, right? It's logging every minute, so it's gonna log how warm it is and how bright it is. But then eventually the sun will move, so you'll need to pick up the microbit and put it someplace else in your house. Now, it's only doing it every minute, and we'd be here for quite a while after the workshop was over in 5 minutes if we were waiting every minute. So what I'm gonna do here, just to demo it for you really quick, is I'm gonna say, hey, every like half a second, okay, log something here. And I'm gonna download it to my microbit here. Okay, it doesn't do anything at first, right? Because it's not logging. Still working on downloading it. But we're gonna do two things. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna shine a flashlight on the logo on the front of the microbit here when it's done downloading and it boots it up, okay? So I gotta press A to tell it to start logging. Okay, so now it's logging and it's sampling every half second. So it's gotten a couple samples by now. And then I can shine the flashlight right on the logo. Wait a few seconds so it captures a few of those. And then I can put the whole microbit in my sweaty warm hands and cover up the logo. And the heat from my hands is gonna register on that microbit. And then when I'm done, right, I've spent the day around my house moving from sunny spot to sunny spot. And Lychee's saying, hey, dude, where's the best spot, right? So on my computer, I take my microbit back and plug it into the laptop, and it shows up as a drive here on my computer. And it's created this file called mydata.htm that I can drag off of the microbit. And then if I open that, it's created this beautiful set of readings for me. So the last one at the end, the temperature was warmer, 32 degrees centigrade, versus at the end of the cable, me holding it up for you, 26 degrees centigrade. You can see when I started shining the flashlight on it, it jumped from 34 to 189. But when I was holding it in my hands, 0, right? So quite cool, right? That it not only collects the data, but it will even graph it for you, right? And you could also copy the data and take it into Excel and use that, if they make you use Excel or Sheets in school, and use that data in a bigger project, right? I can create a blank workbook here in Excel, and I hit copy here. I can also, because the microbit's still collecting the data and running, I can update the data. No, they want me to unplug it back in. So I can copy this, go in, paste it. There's that whole data set. All right? So suddenly the microbit's talking to other programs and using the data. Wow, I timed that perfectly. It's 11:30, okay? So tomorrow what we're gonna do is, you all are now resident experts in the microbit. So tomorrow morning I'm gonna show you, there's a ton of resources on this that now you kind of know what you're doing. Now you can stop listening to me And tomorrow is going to be just me showing you at the beginning, and then mostly me circulating among you while you program a few different projects that you want to program. There's some different games, and there's some science stuff, and we'll have a bunch of different fun things with it. And then we'll kind of finish up the last like 5-10 minutes, kind of, well, what's the and then, right? I kind of gave you one hint of what an and then is like, well, you buy some more hardware to expand the functionality. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. Awesome. Thanks for your hard work this morning.